much for coming. I kind of woke up this morning regretting immediately that I'd signed up to do this as the panic set in, but now I feel good. The energy is good, so thank you for actually being here. I'm Bronwen, I'm CMO at Finisterre, and we're going to talk about how sustainability, inclusivity, and creativity can drive the bottom line. Why are we here? So when MadFest reached out and explained the theme, it resonated deeply. Although we're 20 years old, we can still consider ourselves a scrappy little startup. And of course, there is the natural connection of being Cornish. I'm Canadian, sorry, my accent is terribly not Cornish. Don't tell the Cornish folk that a Canadian is coming in. But being Cornish, for anyone who has spent a winter there, or perhaps even a summer, you will know we do know a thing or two about storms. Sorry, I promise that was my last weather-based pun. And we've been going for over 20 years, so we've gone through a lot of them. From the Great Recession of 08-09, through to the rise of D2C, which for a primarily D2C fashion brand was suddenly this explosion through Shopify and Canva of these beautiful brands suddenly coming into our space. Then, of course, we had COVID, Russia, Ukraine, Liz Truss's mini budget. So far, we've survived them, and we've come out bigger and better than before. So, in case you don't know who we are, who is Finisterre? We were started by this handsome chap. This is Tom Kay, surfer based down in St. Agnes in Cornwall. And he was looking for a way to bring his great passion of surfing to life through a sustainable business. And whilst bobbing out in a winter sea, probably by himself and completely numb, he had this vision of a surf brand that actually spoke to British surfers. So 20 years ago, surf was dominated by California, Australia, Hawaii. It was bikinis, it was bums, that was mostly of the women, overly sexualized. It was bikinis, board shorts, beaches. It was not Cornish surfing. It was not frozen fingers. It was not gray seas and dark skies. He didn't see this world that he was inhabiting at all represented in the sport that he loved. At the same time, he also saw this opportunity for a truly sustainable surf brand to be born. All these surf brands that existed, although they spoke about this rebellious spirit and having this connection to the ocean, they often did so at the expense of the ocean. And thus, Finny was born. This fleece that he's wearing was the very first product. It was a water-repellent fleece designed to pull on as soon as you're out of the water. You get the top half of your wetsuit off. You can't move most of your body by this point. You could throw this fleece on over top. The water repellency means that rain, which is inevitably battering you, is going to help as your body slowly heats up again. And this fleece was 100 pounds, which 20 years ago was extraordinarily expensive. But it was because from day one, he wasn't willing to compromise on the sustainability side. From the beginning, storytelling has also been a critical part of the brand. Tom felt that in order to build a brand that was going to be really meaningful and achieve standout, you had to have this greater, deeper emotional connection to the customer. And for us, our customer was this hardy British surfer. They live this life that is both rugged and romantic. You know, we don't see this story portrayed in the mainstream media, but he still felt as though it was a story worth telling. Because of this obsession with creativity and storytelling, we have an incredibly loyal brand following, which shows up through our LTV and repeat rates. This shot itself, one of my favorites, was taken on a shoot in the Outer Hebrides. That's Tom. It was 3 others, and they were camping for a week, waiting for the waves to come. These tents are incredibly difficult to erect. They're also slightly flammable, and it was so cold at night that they had to set a watch. So every 2 hours, someone would wake up, make sure the fire was still going. One night, after a few too many whiskeys, the watch forgot to wake up, and not only was the fire nearly out inside the burner, it was very much on outside the burner, and ashes had come out and were starting to spread quickly. So there they were in the dark, all still slightly pissed, in their underpants and merino base layers, stomping on ashes, trying to get them out. 2 hours later, they were up, they were surfing, it was fucking freezing, their hands were numb, but this was how we were going to launch our autumn-winter campaign, and they were committed to it. We do have better health and safety regulations now, but this spirit of going to the edges to tell the stories still exists to this day. I'm not going to go through this slide in detail, but it just goes to show, it's really just a demonstration that sustainability has been sustained throughout every storm that we've faced. Right from the get-go, we launched the Beaumont Project. This was a project designed to bring the last remaining Beaumont Merino sheep flock that existed in the UK back into commercial use. This incredible woman, Leslie Pryor, she owned 20 of these sheep. And the industry was dying out. Nobody was investing in British merino wool. So together with Tom and the rest of the team at Finisterre, we've invested in Beaumont, we've invested in Leslie, and since 2012, we've been able to commercialize the line. It means we now have over 300 happy sheep, and each year when we produce this collection, it's expensive, it's exclusive, it's only available in 2 colors, and it sells out before we can even get the email out to our customers. We also launched Lived and Loved back in 2008. Like, this was deep recession time, and there we were going, oh, you know, we'll just start repairing people's products for free rather than encouraging them to buy another one, which perhaps would have been a smarter business choice. But the products started coming back, and they'd have a little note saying like, hey, Tommy, I got an ash on my jacket. Would you mind patching it? Or the wool on my jumper is finally starting to unravel. Would you teach me how to darn? And so our repairs service was born. To this date, we've extended the usable life of over 9,000 Finisterre garments. In 2021, we launched our circularity program through a partner called Reskin, where people can send in their pre-loved Finisterre, they get a voucher, and then we sell it on to a new customer. And since launching in 2021, we've resold over 3,000 units. Who here owns a wetsuit? Okay. Who here owns a Ulex wetsuit? All right, gold stars. 1 second. So, the majority of wetsuits on the market are made out of neoprene. Neoprene is nasty. It's a petrochemical-based material. The production of it obviously comes from exploiting the natural environment, but the actual chemical production of taking petroleum and turning it into chloroprene, which is the base of neoprene, is done at the expense of humans. The chemical plant is lovingly based in this area called Cancer Valley in Louisiana in the States, where the population that live next to the chemical plant, almost exclusively poor and black, have a cancer rate 50 times higher than national US average. It's absolutely scandalous, but no one does anything about it. Surf represents, and the neoprene used for surf represents a tiny, tiny, tiny proportion of the neoprene use around the world. But surfers have this rebellious spirit at heart, and it doesn't feel as though it's something that we can just tolerate. That not only is neoprene something which allows most surfers to access the ocean coming at the expense of the ocean, but that it's also coming at the expense of other humans. So goodness goes, 2021 we became exclusively neoprene free. Ulex is a material that was developed together with the team at Patagonia, who saw this as a problem and wanted to get more natural rubber products into the market. We are the only surf brand that is 100% neoprene free. From a business case, it means we're able to be distinct in the wetsuit market. The product is just as good, but it is more expensive. But also, we've been able to get coverage on the BBC, on Guardian, and with a new documentary that's coming out the back half of this year that's going to cause huge shockwaves across the industry. Once we'd for the last few years, we felt as though we can't just stop with product. It can't just be that sustainability is only about the products that we're making. How are we actually getting our community to be better activists? How do we get them to care? So a few years ago, there was a wonderful super spreader event down in Cornwall, G7. It was closed doors to the public. The Cornish weren't allowed in, and there was almost a complete lack of any ocean-centered conversation around how we were going to bring it to the climate crisis. So we launched C7. It was a publicly available series of talks, podcasts, inspirational videos, etc., that were all about getting our community to care about being an activist and teaching them how to be an activist. We had over 5,000 people sign up ahead of time, and that customer to this day has not only completed the course, but also has a much higher LTV than a control group who joined us at the same time. So again, activism driving the bottom line. Finisterre Foundation, which is a CIC, so community interest group, was launched in 2021 as a way for us to handle the sheer volume of charity requests that were coming into us as a business. Being purpose-driven, we naturally attract incredible groups that are out there doing amazing things, and we simply didn't know who to say yes to and who to say no to. So we launched the Finisterre Foundation that is all about breaking down barriers of access to the ocean, because we believe the more people who are in the ocean, the more they'll care about it, the more they'll want to save it. One of the very first projects we launched was the wetsuit project, where we take wetsuits and we adapt them for people with physical disabilities, amputations, etc., that may prevent them from being able to get into the ocean. We've adapted, I believe, over 77 wetsuits since launching. We have a wait list. We actually can't adapt them fast enough. Anyone who's worked with wetsuits know that they're actually a really tricky material. And we're also really proud sponsors of the WAVE project, which is preeminent UK adaptive surf program, who have just launched another new hub based out of Croyd. Through the foundation, we also launched the Sea Suit. So this was a project a decade in the making from one of our ambassadors who went surfing in Iran and had to wear a wetsuit despite the fact that the water was 30 degrees. That's really, really hot, in case you're not into water temperatures. So she came back and she was like, there's got to be a way that we can create a product where the women who, for whatever reason, want to have modesty, want to have coverage, are still able to access the ocean, but not having to get into a wetsuit or wear something that isn't actually suitable for wearing in the water. So it took the design team best part of a decade to refine the material, to create the design, to user test it and get it out. We launched it a few years ago, and we have it on a buy one, give one program now. So every time you buy one, we give one to anyone who perhaps wouldn't be able to buy it for financial reasons. And then most recently, we saw an opportunity to grow our women's business, because being a surf brand, surf is predominantly masculine, predominantly white male as well. And we felt as though women were being underrepresented. And part of the problem was the sort of misogyny that runs through surf to my point earlier, women in surf was all about boobs and bums. It wasn't actually about them going out and charging, which they are absolutely doing. And so this March, we launched our International Women's Day campaign. You'll see the video in a minute. But also alongside it, we launched a women's filmmaker competition. We saw one of the biggest barriers to representation for women within surf was that it was all men telling the stories. So of course they were telling male-centered stories. We had over 50 applicants. We've funded the first film. It's already been shot, and it's going to be screened at the London Surf Film Festival in November. We have at least 3 or 4 others that we want to tell, and hopefully what we've done is encourage this next generation of female filmmakers to go out, charge, and tell these incredible stories. Whew. So what does all this mean, and how can it help you? I need more water. Sorry. My old boss, Angela, has this amazing quote: never waste a good recession. Now is a really tempting time to pull back on marketing, to pull back on brand, concentrate on the bottom of the funnel only. But I'm pleading, don't do that. You don't need to do that. Through sustainability, inclusivity, and creativity, you can still drive the bottom line. And here are some of my top tips. So, measure correctly. Now, I was saying to my friend Karen, I come to these events and I always get huge imposter syndrome because I think, oh, these are real marketers. I only work in fashion. Like, we're notorious for being a bit fluffy. But this was a big lesson for me. I also don't come from a production or a performance background. So our measurement in fashion was always a little bit loosey-goosey. But now that I've got a board and I've got an FD that I'm accountable to, I have learned how to measure correctly. Second is scale through a niche. We don't need to go bland. And third is about growing from within. So, on number 1, we're going to have a quick quiz. I'm going to show you 2 ads, and you're going to tell me which one you think has the highest ROAS.
We are strong. We are loading boards in the dark. We know the tides and the charts, considering wind, swell, seconds. Putting on damp wetsuits joining the lineup, finding your feet, paddling hard for the shoulder. Another push? No thanks. We ride and we fall. We have no fear of deaths or preconceptions. Alone or together, this is where we belong. We are women of the sea.
And then our next ad. So who thinks it was the International Women's Day film? Put your hand up. Okay, and who thinks it was our spring new arrivals? Trick question, you're all wrong. Because that wasn't how we measure success. It wasn't about return on ad spend. The IWD film was top of funnel. This was thumb stop ratio and hold rate. This was how many people are actually stopping and watching the ad, and then of that percentage, how many are watching it to the end. We didn't want them to go anywhere else. We weren't going to be able to attribute this to a sale, and so success, as established at the beginning, was that this was about getting them to watch the film. The second one was once they'd watched this, a few weeks later, they got hit up with some new product. Here, this was about driving traffic. Again, we weren't going for conversion. We just simply wanted to get them to visit the site so we could then start hitting them up with retargeting. So I might be the last marketer to have realized that you shouldn't measure everything with the same metrics, but it was mind-blowing when I realized that if I actually took the time to sit down with the board, sit down with the CFO, and talk to them about not how everything didn't have to come back to a sale, but could still be deemed successful, that we were able to convince them to continue to invest in this amazing top-of-funnel stuff. So I'd like to think of it as being consumer-focused rather than sales-focused. So your consumer's never going to convert on the first time. What's most important is that when they're ready to convert, you're there and you've done the work to make sure you're top of mind. Second is scale through a niche. I mean, we just had that amazing talk about being distinctive, but we certainly have been on a journey of this too, where we felt as though cold water surf isn't big enough, it's not commercial enough, maybe we need to become a bit softer and a little bit more generic, and all we saw was sales soften. So in this time when you're going to be under pressure, it's so easy to just go, we'll go after anyone who's in the market for anything we possibly make, we'll take them. That isn't going to be what gets you through the recession. If it is a recession, that certainly isn't going to be what's going to keep you standing here in another decade. And then my favorite, but growth starts within. Not many boards, not many meetings about sales come back to your very own people. But if the people in your organization aren't buying your product, aren't talking about your brand to their friends and family, then you've got a fundamental growth problem. Not only are your employees your best customers, but they're going to be the loudest and the proudest ones. Their friends and family are also going to be want to be there supporting you. This photo was taken at Sea Tuesday, which is our all-hands meeting every Tuesday morning. And we start at 10 a.m. because at 9 a.m. we're all going in the ocean together. This was March. Their water was 9 degrees. I thought I was going to die, but I didn't. They held my hand. I got through it. And we came away after. If anyone does cold water swimming, you kind of go a little bit crazy. And we're all like, this is amazing, woo! And that was the best environment and the best mindset to have when we then came in and went, right, how are we driving sales? We're about to finish the financial year. So, top growth hack, start with your people. If they're happy and you're happy, you're going to be able to ride through any storm. That's it.